Alright, hello and welcome to this video. I suppose I'm random and I will talk a little bit about helorush's and more specifically some things about this tourney as well. And if you open the description, there will be timestamps with different topics, so feel free to skip to whatever interests you. First we should define helorushes. This is pretty simple. Helorushes is basically something that a start deployment which starts with a lot of helos, some planes perhaps, some ground units perhaps, and aims to take at least one spawn from the opponent. Sometimes this is enough to take one spawn, other times it isn't. It depends quite a bit on what your opponent does as well. And yeah, I mean, it's no point spending too much time defining helorushes. We pretty much all know what we're talking about. Alright, let's move on. Second thing we should look at is what units and compositions are strong, helorush compositions, and why. Basically, the strongest helorush is one which has a meat shield in front and some units to clean out the survivors of the attack of the meat shield. Basically, the reason for this is that those meat shield helos, notably if you look at the armory, the Lynx AH7 comes with 5-point infantry and 10-point infantry, and it's very good. The characteristics of meat shield helos you want are speed, very nice here, a bunch of ammo, though not that much is required. The HE of the missiles and the HP of the unit itself, obviously. Also, having it with 5-point anti-air unit is quite nice because it stops your opponent from sending around a cheeky helo and killing your CV while you're trying to kill theirs, which is nice. Other unit which is very strong is the Mi-17 / the Mi MTV. This unit as well, you can get it with 5-point infantry, and in my opinion this should be removed from the game. 5-point infantry does not belong in these helos, like it does not belong in the Mi-17, it does not belong in the Lynx AH7, and honestly the same goes for 10-point infantry. In the description there will also be a screenshot of a small part of a conversation I had with FLX about this in January 2016, where I suggested the removal of all combinations of Mi-17 or MTVs with 5 or 10-point infantry, which unfortunately was not possible for reasons nothing to do with FLX but other external reasons. At that point I was not aware of the Lynx AH7's potential yet, but I mean it's a logical conclusion if you remove the Mi-17 to do the same with the Lynx AH7. Alright, again, Mi-17, 4 HE rockets, very good, 8 HP, very good. The speed isn't that great, but it's more than good enough. 20 ammo is quite decent as well. Also, if you get it with these manpads, you will have it on the same veterancy as your CV. Usually with your meat shield blob you also want to send one CV to capture their spawn, for obvious reasons. Alright, next point, how to counter it. For that I will just hop in game, talk again about the formation, and then how to counter it. Let me load a replay. I will just use a tournament replay for this one. If it loads today. So basically the point of the formation with the redfor helorush is to have a line of Mi-17 which soften up, stun and panic the enemy anti-air, and then have like some cleanup helos. Those can be Mi-25, those can be like one Mi-28, you can get the anti-air helo, and usually the Soviet tech should get the command CV, or rather 2 CVs on this map with 2 spawns. I will speed it up until we see the deployment. I think it took quite long here. And first I will talk a little bit about formation, what it is, what it should be, which is somewhat different, and then what Rasman and Anemone should have done to counter it. I believe both of them had like 100 reserve points, which tends to not be enough. You should have 150, and on this map the distance between Kilo Alpha is less than 2 minutes, so you should have a bit more than 150 per person. On 2 minutes you get 400 income with 700 points, meaning, I mean, if you both players have 150 reserve, plus they get 210 each for 2 minutes. So basically, if the spawns are away 2 minutes, like 150 should be enough most of the time. Here they bought this plane. This is a very bad idea. This plane does 2 jobs. It can shoot down enemy planes and it spots for helos. At this early stage of the game, it is only needed to spot for helos, in my opinion. Like, sure, it maybe can shoot down a napalm or a seed, but that's not gonna be... I don't think that's gonna be worth 80 points difference you could have gotten for a cheaper plane here. Basically, the idea is some manpads get unloaded, some just move with the blob, and they might become useful. Here I unload the CV infantry to have it in the helo with the higher veterancy to not let them know where the CV is. Moving on, at this point they spot it, they buy Chieftain Marksman, Gazelle Cannon, commit suicide. SAS should have been queued to land in city, because if a unit is in city, you can, as soon as it shoots, you move as soon as it's almost done aiming, you give it a move command and it will teleport away while still shooting because of input lag, and these helos will not be able to retaliate as efficiently. Basically the idea was to have the Mi-17 in front. You can see I failed hilariously at this. These guys are a little late. The idea was, if here are units, then here comes the first and here the second, because if it goes here it's a bit of a problem with line of sight. This much for how the helorush is structured. Also, it does not need recon, like the recon is only really useful for identifying, because the most important targets are the ones which shoot at the helos, and they will almost always be spotted regardless. Alright, and those 2 Ka-29s, those 3 are way too far behind, like way too far. This is bad. Also, we have some units here in case they have a big blob try and decide to try to take this spawn. It's probably a little bit too much. It would have been enough to put like 2 infantry here. Also, we try to hold a little bit of map control here. Alright, enough about what we did as redfor. Let's look what they did as bluefor. They buy Chieftain Marksman. Don't like this whatsoever. You're better off with Centurions, which are more point efficient. Same DPS, obviously, same gun. Also, all your anti-air needs to be somewhat close together, and you want meat shields in front. Meat shields you can use M36, or a little bit better, UK reservists. You kind of spread those around, because UK reservists come in a 10-point vehicle, 5-point vehicle with 10 HP, 10 HP vehicle I mean, and 10 HP infantry. And these Mi-17, you need to stop them to have to give them manually a target. If you give them manually a target, they will stop and stop shooting for like 1 or 2 seconds, which you do not want. So you, in general, you just fly them straight line and just hope the auto targeting kind of works out, or hope the anti-air is in front of the meat shields and not behind it. Also, this unit is grouped. This is not good. The transport is right on top. There's gonna be splash damage all over this place, by the way. Also, 2 anti-airs are grouped here. This is bad. There's a command tank here. This is pretty good. Actually, in general, I think it's a lot better to just give up this spawn, defend Oscar, make sure you have a good composition of a lot of anti-air, and just push back slowly. Because at this point, you know, we have roughly 2000 points in air units. You have maybe like 400 points in anti-air and the rest in ground and planes. So if you can slow the game down, you can buy a lot of anti-air and you will really hard counter our deployment. You will, it's the same as if we gift you like 500 to 1000 destruction points in the beginning, but we get 3 out of 4 spawns. Alright, let's see what happens. Again, this is terrible. Never do this if you heal a rush. These guys are the cleanup crews, these guys are the meat shields. Hunter and I, we really needed to have this game played very quickly because our schedules did not align very well and we did not have the proper time to do a dry run on this strat, so it was on the fly and we kind of fucked it up. Though luckily our opponents fucked up more, so we won regardless. Napalm on the spawn. These 4 units, they will get panicked, they will get stunned, they are useless. Again, another argument for not calling in this spawn, calling in on the second spawn. Like imagine all this anti-air is over here. These units, they do not drive back, they drive forwards, they take map control here, then they push back here, and then what? We have 2000 points helo. If we had attacked Oscar before, we would have lost. If we did not attack Oscar, we have 2000 points in helo, and bluefor is just buying almost all their points in anti-air. Like track trackers, very good against redfor helorush. Vulcans, very cost efficient, in my opinion better than chieftain marksmen. Well, obviously better than chieftain marksman, also slightly better than chieftain centurion marksman. Like I don't get why do you use chieftain marksman? Like it's literally 10 kilometers per hour and some front armor, which gets you nothing unless I'm missing something, which I might be. Basically, composition of anti-heal rush defense is you want to have a meat shield of like a couple of reservists here, maybe 1 or 2 M36 to mess up the targeting of the MS-17. Like see, they're already out of ammo, many of them, and there will be more out of ammo once they shoot a little bit more here. And the second thing is have your anti-air grouped up, do not have anti-air here and here and here. You spawn, you move in this direction, these move here, and the meat shields are a bit in front to soak shots while anti-air shoots. You want to have all or none of your anti-air shooting for maximizing of DPS while not exposing a single one, so it will just get overwhelmed and insta-stunned or killed if it is not a tank. Here I would prefer infantry CV in a helo. You see the rush, you just load it in, you run away. You regroup in this area and just punish us for having so many helos. Like again, I pointed out many mistakes they made in this first spawn, but in general I prefer to defend the second spawn regardless. Also a little thing you can do. Here it would not have mattered, but in like a second spawn, if you put smoke on a tank CV to kill it, the opponent, he cannot do it with rockets, he cannot do it with ATGMs which are guided. He needs a plane and he needs to have a helo right on top to spot it, like within 150 meters on top. So if you put a big smoke cloud and just kind of run around with your CV, tank CV, it should not be in the forest by the way, so we can drive faster. Your opponent will keep losing recon and will have a very hard targeting unless he has a autocam unit or a plane, which should buy you like 1 minute, which is useful, not in this specific situation but in other situations, something to keep in mind. Good thing FOB is on this side. Putting it here is very bad because Excuse me, my voice is kind of dying. Putting on this side is bad because if we kill all this, we can refuel. Alright, let's see how this plays out. Also, there is a bunch, there are 3 anti-air units. These units, they will do nothing here. Like 3 minutes into the game, meaning how many we get as a team, Hunter and I, we get 600 points at the time your wheeled units are here. What is the point of this? Like, both of us have points to buy planes. You're never gonna take Foxtrot and Golf. If you're gonna take it, it's gonna be irrelevant regardless. And by that assumption, we definitely have too much stuff here. This CV probably needed to run faster, and this needed to go here, so the angles are worse. Like here, it can be shot from here and here. Here isn't relevant because we didn't rush on this side, so it's not impossible that we would have. Yeah, basically it needs to be here. Let's see how it works out. The CV, we did not consider this safe enough, so we went here. We managed to kill this CV and the second one. And that's game 1. Also, something I kind of failed to mention is like to send a 40-point plane to distract the anti-air. So those are basically my thoughts, how to correctly counter this and how to correctly heal rush. So basically I'll talk a bit about game theory now. So if in this game, it's my opinion that it's been my opinion for a very long time that it is a very good idea to have a range of possible openings. Like, do not do always the same or very similar things on the same maps, because this makes you very exploitable. So basically I would polarize the range into a certain percentage of heal rush and the rest like pretty much standard play. Like standard play can have some additional variations or stuff, and obviously they see the deck, so this needs to be balanced for every 2 deck types. Basically, depending on how strong heal rushes are, this metagame will evolve. Assuming I rush more than 50% with helos, the hard counter is just to buy 100% anti-air, and you will win more than 50%. Or you can even play it a little bit more standard and you will win even more. So basically, helo rushing more than 50% of the time is really bad unless your opponent plays bad. And I mean, you could do some Nash calculations and stuff, but what's the point? I mean, Wargame Red Dragon, it does not really have a competitive scene. Like, there is the caliber of the players at the top is not that great. Like the very best players who did a lot of preparation and had exceptional micro. Like, I'm not saying Rasman or Nandamonai, they have exceptional micro and stuff, and they're very good at certain aspects of the game, but they're not very good at others, and this makes them lose quite a bit. For example, inability to counter heal rush. So basically, an argument was made from multiple people, including Rasman, I believe, is like, they say, quote, the heal rush, it's like it can't be countered without losing to a standard gameplay from the opponent or losing a lot of ground, but that's a completely irrelevant statement. Like, that's not the way to think about it. You need to think about what percentage of the time will my opponent heal rush me, and how exactly should I do my deployment such that my win rate multiplied by my win rate against his heal rush is multiplied by their frequency, plus my win rate versus his standard play multiplied by that frequency results in as high as possible win rate. And people apparently do not realize this. So basically, if you keep 200 reserve points at the beginning, you will beat almost every healer rush every time, unless you make big mistakes and your opponent plays perfectly, which you should not do. So basically that's enough, and you will still have like some percent chance to win against standard play. So basically that's pretty much a failsafe already against healer rush being viable to have more than 50% off in the range, unless you have very specific information about your opponent's approach and you see a big mistake in their game plan overall and deployment, in which case you obviously can healer rush more, or you cannot healer rush at all, depending on what they do or do not do. And it's also a bit about the philosophy of competition. It's kind of related to this, like so many people, they just say, oh, healer rush is cheese, or oh, healer rush it does not require skill, but what they kind of fail to see is to decide how often to healer rush is more of the skill, and competition is defined. First of all, you need to stay within the rules, obviously, but it is defined by winning. Like that's the most important thing. That's the entire point of the competition. If you're not interested in winning, what the fuck are you doing in a competition? Why don't you go play with some friends and have some fun? Like imagine there's like a UFC fight, and there comes in a boxer and he says like, yeah, boxing is the purest form of fighting, and all other fighting styles or techniques are like really cheesy, and grappling and choking your opponent is really dishonorable way and unsportsmanlike to play. Like everyone would fucking laugh that person out of the building, and he would get kicked in the legs and get brought to the ground and choked out within a very fast time. Yet somehow in other disciplines, people, I mean, it also comes back to there is like no competitive scenes. There's some players that is alright, and yeah, this is really a shame, because I think this game would be really cool if there were some adjustments. Like healer rush is a tiny bit too strong in my opinion, though. I think it would be perfectly fine if they actually, it would be maybe a little bit over nerfed even, though I could live with that because I do not particularly enjoy healer rushing. And yeah, so I would not mind if healer rush was only like the optimal play according to Nash equilibrium like thing, if you could make it, but you can't really if you have not enough things to go on, which you don't hear. Like, you don't have enough data, you don't have enough player, and you're just gonna be making assumptions. So, I mean, you can still learn something from it, but also, what's the point? I mean, people are not that sophisticated with their ranges anyway, so it's not that valuable. Regardless, getting to the point, back to the point, which I was talking about, and I now forgot. Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't mind if it was a little bit over nerfed, so that it would be only viable to do like 10% of the time, but I mean, if it is really weak, this means the metagame does not require people to prepare for it, meaning it gets stronger again. So yeah, if that makes sense, it will balance itself. And right now I think it's a little bit too prevalent. The optimal strategy would be probably to healer rush like 20 to 35% at this time. It's just my personal opinion. If people were playing better and were more making their deployments more with healer rushes in the mind, which they do not at this point. Also excuse me. Also, a saying I heard, or something I've heard someone say, which stuck with me through the years, which I thought quite interesting, is Limit Hole in Professional said this. I unfortunately do not recall his name. I'd love to give him credit. So basically he said if you can't decide what is the more plus EV play, plus EV meaning higher expected value in this context, meaning a higher win rate against the range of your opponent's strategies, just do what is more annoying to your opponent. Like, this wasn't a decision making in this case, but just a general thought. Let me see, what do I have addressed already? Oh yeah, Patton made a video, great video, very entertaining. Quote from this video: he could be the best team in the tourney if he had some more training and stuff and whatever other caveats he added. Yeah, he said that. And he also said helorushes are unsportsmanlike, to which I heavily disagree. I think it's disrespectful to the art of being as dangerous a team as possible, or rather to be a team that can achieve a highest win rate as possible, to do whatever achieves this goal, and to call something within the rules unsportsmanlike is, I mean, it in this context it's just wrong. And towards the end he kind of started yelling, and he may have ruptured a vein. It's I mean, if you haven't seen it, just go to YouTube and search for it, like George S. Patton Wargame, and go to his channel. You will find it. Yeah, I can really recommend it. It's a great video. So basically I've covered most of what I want to cover. I have a final. I'll make a statement about the tourney as well. I really enjoyed the tourney. To play in it. It was quite interesting. It was, for the most part, most of the decisions were alright. Oh, actually I have one more point about Patton's thing, which he conveniently failed to mention when saying that he was kicked and we were not. The round he was kicked from was extended by 1 day to a Saturday, and he could only play the game on the next Thursday. So he would be over the deadline by 5 to 6 days, or rather 5 to 6 days after the end of the previous round, of the round in which he is supposed to have played it, which is 13 days after the end of the previous round. Whereas Hunter and I, the semi-final round ended on Friday, and we were supposed to play our games within 2 days, and we would have been able to play our games within 6 days. Actually 7.5 days, my bad. 7.5 days, but because Vulcan and Val could only cast it after 2 weeks, they instead decided to disqualify us. I mean, I do understand the logic behind the decision, though it obviously does heavily damage the competitive integrity of the tournament, but I mean, it's not really that serious of a competition. It's not like big money at stake, so I mean, and it's their tournament, so I mean, I may lose a little bit of respect for them, but I mean, they can do what they want pretty much, and I mean, I can understand their logic. I don't even know if I would have acted the correct way, what I do consider the correct way if I were in their position. Though I really would like to believe that I would have. I mean, disqualifying a finalist is, I don't know. It's a bit weird. Especially for like 1 day. I mean, I'm not saying they just bow to pressure or something, but I don't know. It was very unfortunate that schedules did not work out. Anyway, now they decided to, because it's like a really bad look, which is why you're not supposed to do it in the first place, but anyway, moving on. Because it's really bad look to have just a forfeit as the final, they decided to have like a secondary final or like a alternative final, in which they have either RKK or Nandaman. Like first they play each other, though I do not know if they played this game. I know that Nandaman is actually in the final, be it if RKK forfeited or if they just did not post the result, who knows, doesn't matter really. Anyway, they will play Steel Balalaika now in the secondary final, according to ruling of and assuming they win, I suppose they won a best of 5. I mean, they can be considered a winner of the tournament, I guess, and if you're generous, and Into Space and Steel Balalaika would share second and third place, I suppose. And the other alternative is, by the way, I've already seen the result, who won in Steel Balalaika against Nandaman, but in case someone hasn't watched the replays, I'm not gonna spoil it for you. The second possibility would be that Steel Balalaika wins, in which case Steel Balalaika would be definitely the champion, because one of their finals was forfeited to them by admin decision, and the secondary final they won, so they would be number 1. Then of course number 2 would be Into Space, because we did not lose our semifinal, unlike Nandaman, who did lose their semifinal, and Nandaman, because they won against RKK in the thing before, it makes sense that they're number 3 and that RKK is number 4 on the leaderboard thing. By the way, this is not about money for me. If the tournament's admin decides to compromise the competitive integrity and like do it in some weird way and say that Into Space is in the first scenario not shared second and third, or in the second scenario not second place, like I think I've made this case quite clearly. I don't really think this is debatable, and I will not accept prize money if the rankings aren't according to this. I mean, if they aren't, he can just keep the money, he can give it to a charity of his choice, he can have a drink with it. It's not really of my concern what he does with the money. Alright, that's pretty much it from my point. I'm sure I forgot some stuff. Again, there are timestamps in the description on certain topics. I did not really have much time to prepare this video because I only have 36 hours leave this weekend, and the rest of the week I'm in the military. Also, I'm quite tired, so do apologize kind of going back and forth between topics. I hope I managed to convey some points, and thank you for watching or listening, and have a nice day. Bye.